Take your time with your art. I don't even know how many times I've had an artwork not turn out how I wanted because I tried to rush it. Specifically with the sketch, if you're not happy with it, keep tweaking it, because even though it'll take more time, in the end you'll have a much better art piece. Don't compare your art to others. Looking at other artists to get inspired is a great idea, but don't compare your art and let it get you down. Everyone is on a different stage in their art journey, and we all have unique styles, so comparing yourself to other artists is like comparing apples to oranges. They're both unique, and some people will prefer one over the other, but that's okay. Experiment. Try different art mediums, styles, surfaces, and subjects, because you can't really know what you like if you don't try it all. I was always a paper and pencil kind of guy. However, this last semester, I took a painting class and discovered that I really enjoy working with acrylic paint. So don't be afraid to try new ways of doing art. Who knows, you may find that you have a new favorite. Practice a lot. Art is more of a skill than a talent, basically meaning that it can be learned and improved over time. It's not just something that you're either born with or not. If you want to get a lot better at art, I would recommend drawing at least something every day, even if it's just a little doodle, because consistency leads to progress. Draw for you. Draw what you're interested in and what makes you happy. Don't worry about drawing what you think others want to see. Drawing things that you're interested in will lead to a much more enjoyable experience and help prevent you from burning out. And a lot of the time, you'll find that there are people interested in the same things as you. Think of art as a puzzle. You just need to fit all the pieces together to create the final image. There is a lot of trial and error that you'll have to go through, so just focus on what you get right, not on all the attempts along the way. Don't overwork pieces. There's nothing worse than ruining an amazing piece by doing too much with it. I can't tell you how many times I just wish I had stopped working on a piece before it was too late. Just trust your gut and don't take it too far. Contrast. Make your highlights lighter and your shadows darker. This will prevent your art from looking bland and washed out. It'll also make it more eye-catching and overall more appealing. Don't throw away the art you make, even if you hate it and think it's terrible. Chances are even your best art now won't be up to your standards in a couple of years. Keeping your art allows you to look back at it and see the improvements you made. Draw what you see, not what you know. A great example of this is noses. People think they know what noses look like, so they draw lines for the sides, when in reality, it's just shadows. So, especially if you want your art to be a bit more realistic, treat everything you're drawing as if you're seeing it for the first time. Use all the space you have. Don't leave any areas empty. Blank canvas or paper makes an artwork look incomplete. So of course it's fine for sketches, but if you want a nice finished work, fill it up. Do your art on high quality materials. If you're going to spend 10 hours on a drawing, don't use printer paper. Down the road, when it's all wrinkled and ripped, you're gonna be wishing that you had done it on something more durable. Super cheap materials also wouldn't be able to withstand paints or alcohol markers very well. So make the investment and get yourself some thicker paper or canvas. Make your art using high quality materials. This doesn't mean that you have to go spend a ton of money on expensive markers or anything, but trying to use dollar store mediums, you just won't be able to achieve the same quality results, even if you have a lot of skill. So I recommend investing in some decent quality mediums, which you can find for fairly reasonable prices. Just start. The biggest struggle for a lot of us artists is just getting started. Often we're scared that it won't be good or we'll mess something up, but once we get going and stop procrastinating, the rest of the process is a lot more easy and enjoyable. Refine sketches. Don't move into your line art if you aren't happy with your sketch yet. You don't have to add all the details, but make sure that you're happy with how it looks before moving on. I don't know how many times I just got bored of sketching and tried to ink it even though I wasn't happy with the sketch. What it often leads to is messy line art and less than ideal art. Electric erasers. These little beasts can make super fine details in your pencil drawings and can erase in very specific areas. After doing some line art over top of a sketch, I often go in with the electric eraser to clean up some of the lines before I color. Happy accidents. You've probably heard the Bob Ross saying, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents. Though this isn't always the case, you'd be surprised at how many great art pieces came because of accidents the artist made. So when you make a mistake, don't just scrap the whole piece. Do your best to turn it into something cool. Learn color theory. Color plays a huge role in how humans view art, so having a good knowledge of color theory can allow you to make the audience view the art in the way you want. Knowing color theory is also quite helpful when you're mixing colors. Learn value scale. Value is the lightness or darkness of a hue. Each color has nearly unlimited possibilities. You can use light values to bring attention to specific areas and use dark values to create shadows and greater depth. Develop your style. Look at other artists' work, specifically ones that have styles that you like. Try to identify and incorporate elements that you admire in their art into your own, because that's basically how art styles are made. Improve your weakest skills. This is something that nobody really wants to do. It's probably your weakest skill for a reason, but nobody
Nobody wants to be an artist who can only draw certain things. So identify and work on your weakest skills to become a well-rounded artist. Warm up before creating new art. Art is a lot like a sport. If you jump into it cold, you won't be able to achieve your maximum potential. If you just take a little time to warm up, you'll find that you have much more fluid motions in your art. Learn new skills. Today, it's easier than ever before to learn new art techniques and skills, since you can just do it online for free. So take advantage of the resources you have to improve your art. Thumbnail sketches. These are quick little sketches to plan and conceptualize what your art piece will look like. They can help you with composition and planning. I recommend doing a few with some different elements because you may come up with something that you like better than your original idea. Be loose. You may notice that the smoothest lines come from quick, fluid motions. That's because when you go slow, you're more likely to shake or not have a perfect line. So the more loose and fluid you can be, the better the results you'll see. Break down complex forms into simple shapes. This can be extremely helpful for getting proportions correct because it's a lot easier to see if something's off. Using simple shapes can also allow you to draw figure sketches quickly, so you can easily try out different poses and capture the motion you want. Prevent smudging. The easiest way to do this is to draw from left to right so that your hand is never on what you just drew. Sometimes this can be annoying though, so some other ways to prevent smudging are using a digital art glove or piece of paper under your hand while working with pencil. When you work with ink or paint, just make sure that you wait for it to dry first. Use reference photos. This doesn't mean that you have to copy something exactly. It just means that you have a picture to aid you in your art. It is physically impossible for the brain to remember every single detail of something you've seen. So being able to look at something to get a better idea of what to include is very important, especially if you haven't drawn it before. Take constructive criticism. Obviously, comments like your art is trash are better to just ignore, but constructive criticism that mentions an area you could improve on can be very helpful. Sometimes it can be easy to get offended when someone critiques your art, but look to see if there's some truth in what they're saying and use it to improve. Look at the world artistically. In your daily life, try to notice the highlights and shadows on different objects. Look at the forms and intricacies in the world around you. Basically, start getting in the habit of looking at everything like you're planning on making art of it. Have dedicated practice sessions. This is a little bit different than just regular practice. During this time, pick something that you want to improve in and really focus in on that one thing. Either use a tutorial or just do lots of repetition, and you will see progress in that area. Organization. Having an organized workspace and materials is very helpful as an artist. It makes it so that you can just jump right into making art without having to spend time cleaning up or finding things, which overall can lead to more and better art. The rule of thirds. If you divide your composition into thirds vertically and horizontally, and if you place your focal areas at the meeting points between them, you'll get an outcome that's more pleasing to the eye. Clean your paint palette. Now you may be thinking, if the paint dries, it's fine and I can just add more paint on top. Well, even though the paint is dry, if you're mixing colors on top of it, some of the pigment from the dried paint can still get activated and ruin your colors. Sharpies for glass painting. When I started doing glass paintings, I tried to use paint markers to add cross-hatching details in my style. But when I apply the paint over top, it smudged a lot. Recently, I learned that if you use Sharpies, it smudges a lot less since it's flatter to the glass. So I recommend using Sharpies for your line art. Transparent versus opaque paint. Unless you're glazing or doing some very specific effect in your painting where you want to be able to see the other colors under your paint, I would advise just buying opaque paint. I made the mistake of buying some transparent paint accidentally, and the lack of coverage and the layers required annoyed me so much. Drawing with your arm, not your wrist. If you want to achieve clean and flowing lines, this is how. Specifically when you're doing line art and you don't want your lines to look scratchy and uneven, you can move your whole arm instead of just your wrist. This makes you looser but gives you smoother lines. Line weight variation. Making your lines thicker or thinner in different areas can make your art look a lot more three-dimensional. Line weight can be used to convey light and shadows, and even when it's added accidentally, it can still make an artwork look more organic. Build a visual library. Whenever you draw something new, it's much more difficult than drawing something you've drawn before. Every time you draw something, it gets stored in your memory. Even if you can't draw it again without reference, it'll still be easier than if you had never drawn it before. So work on building a huge visual library to become a better and more efficient artist. The white of the eye. It's a common beginner mistake to make the white of the eye, well, white. In reality, you can achieve a much more realistic look using many shades of light gray. The only part of the eye that should be completely white is if you're adding highlights. If you don't want to clean your paint palette, you can simply put saran wrap over top of it. You can still use your paint palette like normal, but when you're done, instead of having to spend time washing it, you can just pull off the thin layer of plastic and throw it away.